Welcome to NFL World, where the NFL starts and ends. I'm your host, Jacob. And George Pickens was franchise tagged on Friday. He was told about it on Thursday. And that's really what we're going to be talking about in this. The franchise tag and how this works. This was the non-exclusive tag, which means this is the more standard used franchise tag. It's valued about $27.2, so really about $28 million. It was worth it for multiple reasons. But what we're going to talk about is how the Cowboys paid for this, how they get Pickens on board, and what got us to this point. So let's begin with what got us to this point. At the Combine this week, the Cowboys were having their meetings with their players that are under contract right now that want to get extended or even upcoming free agents. One of which they talked to was George Pickens, and they talked to George Pickens' representation. They said, we're looking at this wide receiver market. It's a lot of money. The franchise tag is $28 million on average. Depending on where you look, some places it's 29, some places it's 27 point whatever. This is the number we're going to use. We're going to use 28. It's easier. It's a round number. We can talk about it easily that way. We said this earlier, that if Pickens got franchise tag, that he would not accept lower than the franchise tag figure. That's not shocking by anyone's imagination. Pickens is a very talented wide receiver. And I think the reason the Cowboys went down this road was they don't have the time to talk to everybody. And they saw that Pickens, even though it would be a lot of money to get him that, like, the deal I would assume he's going to get is 30 to 32. I heard someone, I'll drop his name, Mike Fisher, on his YouTube channel said, what about if you give him the CD Lamb contract? We'll discuss that in a second. But that's his range, $30 to $32 million. The franchise tag is 28. Would he accept 29? Would he be like, no, I need to get to 30? Who knows? But you had to do this and you had to give yourself some more time. By putting the franchise tag on him, which the deadline for the franchise tag is tomorrow. We tape this on Monday, of course. So Tuesday at 4 o'clock is the franchise tag deadline. They have now, once they place it on, they have until July 15th to have a deal done. Otherwise, he plays on the franchise tag. By putting the franchise tag on him, Pickens' cap hit for this year is $28 million. Had they signed him if they signed him before free agency starts, that cap hit could go from 28 to almost under $10 million. It's a gigantic figure in terms of a percentage of the cap. The guy is obviously worth it. He's obviously going to get paid, whether it's by Dallas or somebody else. But also by putting the franchise tag on him, if anyone wants George Pickens, they have to send 2 first-round picks to him. No one's going to pay 2 first-round picks for George Pickens. They're just not going to do it. But if someone's willing to, the Cowboys are probably going to let that happen because it's a great haul. Now, I think it was Schefter who said it might be a second-round pick, which would still be a good, sizable draft choice. But once they put this tag on him, he couldn't really move. So let's talk about, we got from how do we get here to, in the case of George Pickens, how did they get him on board with this? Thursday night, they called George Pickens and they talked to him, or they brought him on. It's kind of all over the place, depending on who you're reporting, who you're getting your reports from. But they did talk to Pickens and they said, look, yes, it is true we're putting the franchise tag on you. But we're not doing this because we don't want you to get paid. We're doing this because we want you on the team long term and we don't have the time to get a complete contract done. if we can pay you, which we absolutely can. No, every team can pay anybody. It's how these contracts work. There is no such thing as cap hell. Cap hell does not exist. It never really did. It's a fancy way of saying you owe a lot of money to the salary cap, but it's not a true thing. What the Cowboys are doing is saying, if we franchise tag you now, but in April get a deal done, you are going to count for $10 million in the salary cap and not 28. We want you here long term. We do. We really, really do. But we have to figure out how to get you here long term. The only way we can do that is by putting the franchise tag on you. And we're excited. We want you here. We are excited to keep you here. And the quotes coming from George Pickens' side of the world of this was he's excited to be here. He wants to be here. He wants to be here for a long time, which is also what the Cowboys have expressed. I will say this. I know a lot of people have said this is like the Michael Parsons situation. It's not. It's not fully anyway, because the only two things that are the same are you have a very talented player who wants to get paid, and you use the same ad agency. It's the same thing. The same agency covers both players. They were both represented by Athletes First, which David Mulgeta works for and works as, essentially, I should say, because he basically owns the company. So Mulgeta, who the Cowboys last year tried to pretend that they didn't know who he was, they worked with him in the past. They've worked with Athletes First before. They've worked with them. And they've worked with David Mulgeta. And they never had an issue. But when you had Jerry Jones either purposely or accidentally mispronounce Mulgeta's name, like that's something that they were trying to be too cute with it. Now they're actually saying, no, we don't have an issue with this guy. Let's get this deal done. Now, Mulgeta and Athletes First do not like the franchise tag. No one really does, because they think it's going to be like, okay, can you do it again? Can you manage to have that kind of outcome again this year? And that's why they don't like it. It's that reasoning. It's basically the owner buying time. But in the same way, it's the owners trying to say, no, we need a couple more months to negotiate this deal. I brought up the fact of how could this be close to the CeeDee Lamb contract. Mike Fisher brought up a great point, and I encourage you to look at his YouTube channel. He brings up a lot of great points. He's works at the Star, basically. He's at the Cowboys facility in Frisco. He practically lives there. He lives right on the same street. He brought up this fact of, why don't you just offer him the CeeDee Lamb contract? Because if he says no to that, and he says, I want more, oh, you want more than CeeDee Lamb, that's where you get a little shaky. I don't think he will get as much as CeeDee Lamb. Like I said, I think his range is $30 to $32 million. But if that number is where he needs to get to is 34, I don't see him going higher than that, because I don't think he's in the same realm as like $40 million guys or anything like that. But the wide receiver market's also really fluky. It makes no sense, because in every position group, it's not categorized by how you are in the depth chart. It's categorized by your position, as it should be. Like, if you're a wide receiver, you should be paid like a wide receiver. You shouldn't be like, well, you're a number 2 wide receiver, so that's a whole different market, because you would never get deals done. So that's what I'm saying. He's not going to take less than the franchise tag. And he shouldn't, nor will he. The final thing is, how does this work? How do the Cowboys afford this? It's very simple. The salary cap for 2026-2027 season is going to be anywhere between $301 to $305 million. That is a projected total. It has not been confirmed of where it will be, probably in the middle somewhere. Is that higher middle, lower middle, who knows? But it will be in the middle somewhere. The Cowboys have a lot of dead salary cap, meaning they are under or over the cap budget by a little bit. How do they get under that? Well, you can restructure guys, you can extend guys, you can do those things. And by doing that, you can get under the budget. And then when next year hits, you'll have a much more condensed budget. You can spend more by doing that. The Cowboys are doing the restructure method, but are also doing the extending method, or at least want to do the extending method. By restructuring Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Tyler Smith, who they've all announced they will restructure, by the way, will save you about $63 million. So you'll be under the salary cap by not 63, but you'll be under the salary cap just by that move, by those 3 moves, which will happen as soon as the salary cap is figured out. Then they are planning to do 3 more players, which they described. This was Adam Schefter, how he worded it. The Cowboys are going to restructure Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and Tyler Smith. But they're also going to rework Quinnen Williams, Kenny Clark, and Osa Odigizua. I cannot talk. By doing those 3 moves of Clark, Williams, and Odigizua, they will save an additional $60 million. If you restructure Osa, it's $20 million. If you restructure Kenny Clark and Quinnen Williams, it's a combined total of $18 million. But if they sign them and then they extend Quinnen and extend Kenny, they can save $15 million from each on top of the Osa deal, which would be 20. Does that mean Osa's on the move potentially and that they're just going to be trading him to try to save that money? Who knows? It could be just a simple restructure, which is what I believe. By the Cowboys restructuring Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and Tyler Smith, it saves them about $63 million. So they'll be under. There's a lot more moves they can make. They can restructure Jake Ferguson, Terrence Steele. They could cut Terrence Steele if they want. Who's their right tackle? They could cut him. They could go and restructure Deron Bland. They could do all these moves. And the Cowboys have kind of let that be known that they can do all these moves. I think when the numbers come out for the salary cap, they will do more restructures, but it depends on the number. If it's closer to 301, they may not. If it's closer to 305, they might continue to do more restructures. But by doing that, they could afford the contract. Remember, we said this when we did the Javonte Williams video about Williams' contract cannot be signed until they're under that cap number. Well, by restructuring, they could then sign Javonte Williams, which his salary, his base salary, is not a lot of money. So basically, as soon as they restructure, they can sign it. That's that quick. But they need to do this move for George Pickens, because if they do that, now they can put him on. Then by signing Quinnen Williams and Kenny Clark, they could then basically say, okay, now we've replaced that money that we had to pay George Pickens with. We've replaced that, so now we still have a lot of money to use. And we haven't even restructured Osa yet. There's an advantage by doing that. They 100% can pay for as many free agents as they want. It's not a question of can they, it's a question of will they and will they want to. Let me know in the comments, how do you feel about Cowboys franchise tagging, I should say, franchise tagging George Pickens? And let me know, how do you think will they get a long-term extension before the franchise tag deadline, or will George Pickens play on the franchise tag? For NFL World, I'm Jacob Hebert.